Hello and welcome to module 21 in our C language series. This is the last module for the series and we're going to focus on graphics. And we're going to keep it really simple. We're going to be using the file graphics.h. In order to use this header file, there are a few things we need to do. The first is to click on this link. Now you'll find this link in the description below, and when you click on it, you will be taken to this page. Right? Scroll down the page and click on this link, which will in turn bring you to this page. Now this is what we need, right? This is essentially a 32-bit compiler. Once you click on the exe file, the download should begin. Once the download is done, you should in your downloads folder see this particular exe file. Double click on that exe file, and to install this compiler you need to click create and then next after that and next again, right? The installation should then begin. I have already done the installation, so I'm not going to do it again. Once the installation is done, you should on the left hand side of Windows Explorer, if you click on C drive, you should be able to see this particular folder. Okay. Now, once that is done, the next thing we need to do is to get this zip folder. Now, a link to access the zip folder is posted in the description below. So click on that link. Now, I have this link in a notepad file, so I'm just going to copy that and paste it in my browser. And this should take you to the folder, right? You see these three files. Click on download, right? Once the download is done, then in your downloads folder, you should have this zip folder. If you double click on that zip folder, you should see these three files. Of these three files, the files ending in .h need to be pasted into this folder, within that in the include folder. So what we'll do is we start with graphics.h, right click, copy, then click on the include folder, right click, paste. Now I'm getting this message obviously because I have already pasted the file here, right? Once you've done that, the next thing we need to do is to go back to the zip folder and right click on the winbgim.h file, click copy, and then again you can either scroll down and go to the TDM GCC 32 and then within that the include folder, or you could just click the right arrow which will take you to the include folder, right click and paste. Okay, as you can see, I have already pasted this file. Therefore, this message, click the left arrow to go back to the zip folder. We're left with what to do with this .a file. So right click and copy. And this needs to be pasted in the TDM GCC 32 folder, within that in the lib folder. So click on that lib folder, right click and paste. Okay, again I already have this file and therefore this message. Once you've done that, the next thing we need to do is to change compiler settings. For that we need to load CodeBlocks. So in your search bar, Windows search bar that is, just type in CodeBlocks, click open. Once CodeBlocks is loaded, click on settings, click compiler, and then click on toolchain executables, and this should be your directory. Now, if it is not, then click on these three dots, then click on C drive. Within C drive, click on the TDM GCC32 folder. So you see this in this bar, right? Then click select folder, and that's all, right? So you've now set the compiler installation directory to C:\TDM GCC32. The next thing we need to do is to click on linker settings. And this is the text that needs to be pasted here, which you will find in the description again. So Control C on that text and paste it here, then click OK, and you're done, right? So we've changed compiler settings. We've also changed the linker settings. Now the next thing I needed to do is to go to your Windows search bar and type in advanced system settings. So you should get this, click open, and now click on environment variables, double click on path, the path variable, and you should see the path to CodeBlocks /mingw/bin. If you don't, then what you need to do is you can just cancel everything here, right? And you can then go to Windows Explorer, click on the C drive, and then click on program files or wherever your CodeBlocks is installed. Mine is in program files, right? And then click on the CodeBlocks folder, then click on mingw, and then bin, and that's all. And then just click in this bar. You have the path there. Control C to copy, and now go back to the advanced system settings. Click open, click environment variables, click on the path variable, click new, Control V to paste that path, right? And then of course you need to click OK. Now I already have the path, so I'm just going to delete this additional one, right? Once you have your path there, click OK like I said, click OK again, and OK again, and you're done, right? We can now move forward to look at the different functions. The first one is init window. This is the prototype. Width and height, as you can see there, are the first parameters that necessarily have to be specified. The title, that's const char star title, that's the title that will appear in the title bar for the window. Right now you may choose to not have a title, in which case you need to put in the quotes with a space, because if you don't, then you have essentially an empty set of quotes, which means you will not be able to close the window, and I'll show you that when we write the code. Int left and int top, of course, refer to the top left corner of the window. DB flag refers to the double buffering flag, that has to remain as false. Close flag should always be true, so that we have that X button which allows us to close the window, right? Now this particular function initializes the graphics system by opening a graphics window, which will be separate from the console that we see when we are running our programs, right? So this will be another window, and it will be of the size as specified by width and height. So now you know why width and height are necessary or required to be specified. Now this returns an integer, as you can see, which is unique. Why? Because we can have multiple windows, and each window would be identified by its own unique integer or return value, right? Then we have set color. This is the prototype. As you can see, the return value is none, and it takes as parameter an integer. These are the different colors. Now it has to be said that you can either send as argument the value, as in the integer itself, or you could specify the name of the color, but without enclosing it within quotes. No quotes, just the color in uppercase. just as you see it on screen, right? Then we have set line style. This is the prototype. Again, return value is none, and the parameters are integer type parameter line style, which will indicate whether we have a solid line or a dash line or a dotted line, etc. The unsigned int pattern, which is the second parameter, is used only if the line style is a user-defined line style, but nonetheless, it needs to be passed as argument when calling set line style. Because if we don't, then we will get a syntax error saying we've sent too few arguments to the function set line style, right? Thickness, of course, will determine the thickness of the line, right? And we will specify it using an integer. So the function sets a style for all lines drawn, but does not affect circles, arcs, pie slices, or ellipses. Incidentally, there are functions for all of these. That is, there is a circle function, an arc function, a pie slice function, and an ellipse function as well, which we will look at in this session. Then we have the line function. This is the prototype. As you can see, return value is none. And the parameters, as you can see, are 4 integers. The first two, that is x1 and y1, are the starting point for the line, and x2 and y2 are the ending point or the ending coordinates for the line. Draws a line in the current color using the current line style as set by set line style between the 2 points specified by x1, y1 and x2, y2. Right? So now what we're going to do is, we've looked at these functions. We're going to stop this presentation and go to CodeBlocks and write some code to see how these functions work. Right? So going to CodeBlocks now. Right, so click on File, click New, then File again, C source, click Next, and you need to make sure this is a C++ file. So click on C++, Next, click on the ellipses, and put in a file name, right? So we can just call that graphics, right? This will create a .cpp file or a C++ file. Graphics.h does not work with .c files, right? So hashtag include stdio.h and then hash include stdlib.h and then hash include conio.h because we'll use get, and hash include, this will be graphics.h. Okay. Our main function. The first function we use is init window. As we know now, it initializes the graphics system and will create a window of size as we specify. So let's put in 800 and 800 again. That's width and height. And our title will be graphics using C++. Okay. This is what will appear in the title bar for the window, right? Then we have int x equal to get max x. So this will get the maximum x coordinate, right? Which in our case will be 800. And we'll have y equal to max or get max y. So as you may have figured out, this will be 800 as well, right? Set color. Let's put in a yellow there. As you can see, no quotes, just the name of the color. And set line style. Let's put in 3 here, we need to specify unsigned pat. So we need a variable, right? So we just have that variable here, int unsigned pat. You're not using it, comma. That's the thickness, right, of the line. Then we use the line function. Starting point will be 0, 0. Ending will be x, y, right, which will be, of course, 800 and 800, right? So let's run this small program now. Build. Right, it's in it window there, not windows. Build. And run. Okay, so now you saw that there was a window that appeared, but it disappeared so fast that we couldn't see it. So what we'll do here is we'll put a get. Okay. Now when we build and run, that's our line, right? As you can see, that's a dashed line, right? Let's now use a 1 instead here. Build and run. And you can see we have that dotted line. Okay. Now use 2, or rather let's say 0. Build and run. And you have a solid line, right? Okay, so you can play around with that little program later on. Now we move on in our presentation. The next is the rectangle function. This is the prototype. You can see the parameters there. We need to provide left, top, right, and bottom, all integers. So this function draws a rectangle in the current line style, thickness, and drawing color. Return value is none. Okay, so we'll go back now to CodeBlocks. And we'll start a new file so that there's no confusion with the code. Again, click on C, C++ source, next, and leave that as C++, click next, put in a file name. Let's call that rectangle, right? And finish. Okay. Copy the code from this point up until the init window, right? And bring that in here. Okay. And after this, we will call set color. Right, this time we'll use green. Okay, and then set line style. Let's say 0, so we have a solid line. And then unsigned pat, comma 1, which means we need that integer here. So int unsigned pat, right? We'll have a for loop here, no initializations there. We'll have an integer, and as long as that integer is greater than 0, that's how long this loop will run. I minus minus, which means we need an integer I equal to 10, let's say, right? And now within this loop, we'll call the function rectangle, sending in L, T, R, and B, left, top, right, and bottom. So we need to declare those as well. So we'll have int, let's say L equal to 100, int T equal to 100, int r equal to 200 and int b equal to 200, right? Once we've called that function, we can call the delay function to pause, and then L plus equal to 20, T plus equal to 20, R plus equal to 20, and B plus equal to 20, right? So that loop will run. Then we'll use a get before ending the program. We need to make sure that the main function has got open and closing brackets, of course. And now if we build this, okay, there's a semicolon missing there. Build again, run, and there you have the rectangles, right? Press any key to end the program. Okay, so that's about the rectangle function. Now moving on. The arc function. This is the prototype. As you can see, the return there will be nothing, as it's a function returning a void. And you can see the parameters int x, int y. This will be the center of the arc. The arc will start at ST angle and end at end angle. And radius, of course, will be indicated by radius, right? So this function draws an arc in the current drawing color with center as int x, int y, as I mentioned, travels from start angle to end angle. Radius is specified by int radius. So now we're going to go back to CodeBlocks and we can start a new file. Again, make sure it's C++, right? And save, finish. Now again, we need to copy a few things. So these 4 lines and up until main. Okay, we will need init window, right? Don't take the set color. We can put in a color there. So let's put this in. Now after this, we'll use set color, and I'm going to use yellow. You can try different colors if you like. Then we have an integer x equal to get max x divided by 2. So essentially here we're going to be using x and y to specify the center of the arc. Get max y divided by 2. After this, we call the arc function, sending in x comma y, and then the start angle will be 0, end angle is 90. So 0 is a 3 o'clock, 90 is a 12 o'clock. So the arc will be drawn counterclockwise from a 3 o'clock to 12 o'clock. Okay. Radius will be 100, let's say. And then we'll use a get so that we can see the arc and return 0. Right? So let's build now and run. And there you have the arc. As I said, it's drawn from a 3 o'clock counterclockwise to a 12 o'clock. Now if we change that to a 180, then what do you think will happen? So if we run this now, now we have a semicircle. If we change this now to a 360, right, and now we run it, then what should we get? and we get a circle, right? So that's about the arc function. Moving on, we now have the circle function. And you can see the function there, the prototype, right? It's got int x, int y as parameters. That's going to be the center. And then, of course, the radius. Draws a circle in the current drawing color, center at x and y, radius given by radius. So now let's go back to CodeBlocks and we can start a new file. Make sure again it's a C++ file and give it a name. And again, we can copy a few things from here up until init window and the color as well, since it's going to be the same. Now we'll have int I equal to 10 and then int x equal to get max x divided by 2 and then int y equal to get max y divided by 2. Okay. Now we have a loop for no initialization, I less than equal to, let's say, 800. Okay. And I plus equal to 10. Within this loop, we'll call circle, sending in x and y for the center, and the radius will be I. Okay. Delay of 500 milliseconds. And then x plus equal to 4 and y plus equal to 4. So we're changing that center as well, right? And then, of course, a get out of this for loop and return 0, right? Let's build and run now. And you can see those circles being drawn. Right, so I hope that's clear. Moving on now to the next function, which is the ellipse function. And you can see this function prototype there. Return value is none, and you can see the parameters requires a center to be specified given by integer x and integer y. And we have a start angle and an end angle as well. And we have a horizontal axis as well as the vertical axis. Okay. Draws an elliptical arc in the current drawing color. The horizontal and vertical axes are given by x radius and y radius respectively. The ellipse travels from start angle or ST angle to end angle. Okay. Now going back to CodeBlocks. And again, we start a new file. You could choose to have all these in one file, but it would be pretty confusing. It would be kind of a mess. Therefore, separate files is better. Click on the ellipses and put in ellipse here. Save, finish. And again, we can copy some things from here. Keep set color as yellow for this one. Bring that into ellipse. Okay. Now we'll have int I equal to 8. And again, you can play around with these values. Then we have int center of ellipse. That will be x equal to 300. And int center of ellipse y equal to 300. right? Start angle, we'll have as 0, and end angle, let's have that as 360. Int x rad equal to 150, horizontal axis. Int y rad equal to 75. For no initialization, I greater than 0, right? That will be I minus minus. Within the for loop, we'll call the ellipse function. And of course, we need to specify the center. So C of Lx, comma, C of Ly, right? And then of course, start angle and end angle. And of course, we need the horizontal axis. So x rad, comma, y rad, right? Then delay 500 again. And then x rad minus equal to 10. And y rad minus equal to 10. Okay. Outside the for loop, get and return 0. Right. Let's build now. Let's run. And you can see those ellipses being drawn. Right. So that's about the ellipse function. And like I said, you can play around with the values as well as with this program. Now moving on. Right, the next function is set fill style. As you can see the prototype there, and the return value is none. The parameters are int pattern and int color. Pattern would give you different patterns like these. And of course, they're not to be specified within quotes, just like color. Now this will only set the style. It will not actually draw the pattern. To draw the pattern, we need to use fill ellipse. Okay, and this is a prototype for fill ellipse. As you can see, we have the parameters int x, int y, which is the center of the ellipse. And then, of course, we have the horizontal and vertical axes given by x radius and y radius. Return value is none. Right? Draws an ellipse using x, y as a center point. X radius and y radius are the horizontal and vertical axes. Right? Fills it with the current fill color and fill pattern. So going back now to CodeBlocks, we can start a new file. Make sure it's a C++ file again. Click on the ellipses and put in a file name. And again, we can copy a few things from here. So just copy until set color. Okay. And bring that into the new file. Right. Now we're going to have certain variables here. We'll have int mid x, mid y, okay, and I as well. Then we have int x radius equal to 100 and y radius equal to 50. And again, you can play around with these values later on after the session. Right, after the set color here, we can say mid x equal to get max x divided by 2, right, and mid y equal to get max y divided by 2, right? That would give us the center. Then we have a for loop. So we loop through the patterns so we can see the different patterns on screen. For I equal to empty fill. Okay. Condition will be I less than user fill. Right. And then I plus plus within the loop. We'll say set fill style. So we're calling that function. Right. Sending in I, and you need to put in a color. So I'm just going to use get max color. Okay. And then we need to call fill ellipse to actually draw that pattern. Mid x, mid y, x radius, y radius. Okay. And then of course we can just provide a delay of 500 milliseconds. Get and return 0. Right? Let's build. Let's run. So now you can see the different patterns. Right? You can, of course, decide to put in a color here. Let's say yellow. And now if we build and we run it, so now I'll get it in yellow. Right, so I hope that's clear. Moving on to the next function, which is pie slice. So this is the prototype. As you can see, it requires parameters, 2 of them. That's the first 2, which is the center. Then we have a start angle and an end angle, and of course the radius, right? Return value is none. Draws and fills a pie slice, center at x, y. The slice travels from start angle to end angle. So begins at start angle, ends at end angle, outlined in the current drawing color. Right? So this is filled using the current fill pattern and the fill color. Going back to CodeBlocks now. Let's start a new file. See that this is C++. Click next. Click on the ellipses. Put in the file name. Now again, we can copy a few things from here. So just copy up until main. Bring that here. Right? We'll start with init window. Right? Passing in again 800, 800, and the title. Okay. Int x equal to get max x divided by 2, and int y equal to get max y divided by 2. Right? Then we'll use set fill style. Let's use a solid fill here. Right? Let's say in red. And then we call pie slice, passing in x, y. Start angle will be 0, end angle 60. Right? And then the radius, let's say, is 120. And then we'll call set fill style again. Again, that will be solid fill. And this time this will be blue. And we'll call pie slice, sending in x, y. and this will be 60 start angle, end angle will be 160, radius is 120 as earlier. Then we call set fill style again. Again, this will be solid fill. And this time the color will be green, right? And we'll call pi slice, sending in x comma y, and the start angle now will be 160, end angle will be 220, right? Radius will remain the same, 120. And then set fill style, again solid fill. This time we'll have yellow, and then we will call pi slice, sending in x comma y, and the start angle will be 220. 360 will be the end. So essentially we're going from 0 to 360, and radius will be 120 as before, right? Then we just have a sketch, right, and return 0. Okay, let's build. Let's run. And that's a pie chart. Okay, so that's about pi slice. Moving on. Right, so now let's write some code to use what we've learned so far. Write a function that can draw a box. The parameters the function will take are starting coordinates and the ending coordinates. So now we need to go back to CodeBlocks and start a new file. Make sure again it's a C++ file. And we need to specify a path. Click on the ellipsis. Let's see. Draw a box. Right? And save. Now here hash include stdio.h, hash include stdlib.h, or you could just copy it, hash include graphics.h, and hash include conio.h. We have our function void box, and that's going to have certain parameters required: int start x, int start y, int end x, int end y, right? So those are the parameters for the box function. And now our main function. Within the main function, we'll have init window. Again, this will be 800, 800. And we'll have the same title. Set color. I'm going to stick with yellow. Now we'll call box and send in arguments. So these will be integers: 200, 200, 40, and 50. Okay. Then we'll call it again, sending in 100, 120, 140, and 250. And again, you can play around with these values later on. Box, sending in 150, 150, let's say 90, and 20. Okay. And then a get, right, and return 0. Now we need to write the function itself. So that's void box, int start x, int start y, right, int end x, and int end y, right? Within this function, Now we've learned the line function, so we can use that, right? So line start x, comma start y, comma end x. There's two commas there. End x, comma start y. Okay, so you see how this will be drawn, right? Start x, start y. This should be end x and then start y. Okay, then we call line start x and then start y will be the first two parameters, and then start x and end y will be the next two parameters, right? And then line start x end y, right? And then end x and end y. Okay, and then line end x start y end x comma end y. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, so that you can see how these lines are being drawn, I'm going to put in a delay here of 500. Okay, so that you can see exactly what's happening, and then we can just paste that after every line is drawn, right? Make sure the code is neatly aligned, right? And that's all. So now let's build this. Let's run it. So you see how that was drawn, right? So those are the three boxes, right? And you can play around, of course, with this program. Now the next program is to write a function that will fill a box with a given color. So we'll go back to the same program, and what we'll do is we'll call fill a box now, right? But we'll comment out these calls to box, okay, so that we can see how fill box works. So what I suggest is just comment out from this point up until the get, right? And here we call fill box, which we will write shortly, right? So let's declare that function here, void fill box, and this will be int start x, int start y, int end x, and int end y. In addition, int color code. Okay, so that we can have it filled in different colors, right? So we call now this function sending in, let's say here 200 start x, 200, right? And then we send in 40. So you see these are the same, 40, 50, and the color, let's say, is 1. Okay, and then fill box again, sending in 100, 120, 140, 250, just like this particular box, and the color will be 2. And then fill box, right? We send in now 150, 150, and then 90, 20, just like the third box we drew there, and the color will be 3. Again, you can play around with all these values, and then we'll call the get function, right? Now we need to write this function So void fill box, and we send in start x, int start y, int end x, and then int end y, and last is int color code. Right? Within this function, we're going to use a register integer I, and we'll have another integer. We'll call that beginning point and end point. Right? So all these are register integer types. Beginning point, now we're going to use a ternary operator. Right? Condition will be start x less than end x. We'll question that. If it is true, then beginning point will be start x. Otherwise, it will be end x. Okay? And then ending point will be, and again we'll use a ternary operator, start x greater than end x. So if start x is greater than end x, then the ending point will be start x. Otherwise, it will be end x. Okay? And of course, there's no semicolon there. That's a mistake. Right? Now we'll call set color, sending in the color code that came in as parameter. Right? And then for I equal to beginning point, I less than equal to ending point, right? I plus plus. And here, what we can do is we can use a line function, because remember that with the line function, we can draw the line in the current color, right? So we send in line, or rather call the line function, sending in I, right, comma, start y, and then I, end y. Okay. The starting point and ending point for the line. Delay of 50, I'm just going to put in so that you can see how the line is being drawn. Right? And in effect, you will see how the box is being filled. Okay. So now let's build this. Let's run it. And you can see there how each line is being drawn. Right? That's the first box, the second one, and finally the third. Okay, so again, you can play around with this program. Now, the last thing I need to show you before we end the session is this. If, for example, we delete this title and then we build and run, you can see I don't get that X button, so I cannot close this window. Right? This is what I was talking about when we discussed the init window function. Right? So in effect, I can only close this window. Now, if you don't want the title, but you still want to be able to close that window, just leave a space there. So now if we build and run, you can see now I don't have a title there, but I do have the ability to close that window, right? Right, so this ends our session as well as the series. The next series will be on Django. So till then, take care, stay safe, bye.